What's up, everybody? We are back. We are ranking even more stuff in yet another Zombie Survivors. Last time we ranked all the weapons in the game. Today we're going to be ranking all the survivors in the game, which should be a lot easier and a lot quicker. Instead of, I think it was 15 weapons that we ranked, we're only doing 6 survivors today, because that's all we have so far with the base game. The game did just come out about 2 weeks ago, so these are just initial reactions that I have after pumping an embarrassing amount of hours into the game so far. So anyway, let's get it going. Let's start it off. Our first survivor we're going to talk about today is the Medic. So the Medic initially was the hardest survivor to unlock because you had to pick up 200 in-game medkits, which could take quite a while. Luckily, they've kind of nerfed that, so you only need half as many. You'll need 100 in-game medkits collected to unlock her. And even though we're not going to rank her too favorably today, she is still very, very, very useful. In fact, before this recent patch we had, she was almost game-breaking because what she specializes in is health regen, life steal, those kind of things. So a really strong medic on your team is constantly regenerating a lot of health, which, as you'll find when you play this game, is maybe the most useful thing you can have on your team, to be regenerating health, because at some point you are taking health no matter what, no matter how good you are at weaving through zombies. But what holds her back is her weapons. Unfortunately, all of her weapons are pretty bad. None of them are really useful for actually putting zombies away. I mean, don't get me wrong, they do damage. They help out. You know, if you have 2 other survivors shooting, she is helping. It's not like she's just standing there, even though sometimes it looks like she's just standing there, because her fire rate with her flasks is so slow. Which is why I actually recommend not upgrading to her weapon all the way. I'm just staying with the primary weapon, the primary handgun, upgraded all the way, and without switching to the next weapon. Because it actually works with criticals. So if you have somebody like the Ghost or the Huntress who can boost your criticals at time, or if you're just getting critical pickups, the handgun from her can still be pretty useful, and you still get the health regen. Not to mention she can help a lot with her fire rate and movement speed. So she is still a very, very useful member, but for our ranking purposes today, she will be coming in last. Still in the C rank though. I mean, I'm not big on tier lists. Usually I like to do like 1 through 5, but I'm gonna put her at C because she's definitely still usable. She just has the big drawback of not doing damage, which also means she has really no crowd control if she's by herself. So if you start with her and you haven't added the other survivors yet, it's really difficult. Or if you're trying to solo with her, it's almost impossible because you just have those horrible flasks or the handgun with no critical really. So, but like I said, in certain positions, she's really good. Anyway, moving on to our next survivor. We have the Huntress. Huntress is actually probably my favorite survivor in the game. I just like the playstyle. I like the bow and arrow stuff. Maybe it's Lord of the Rings and Legolas in me. I don't know. But I think the Huntress is really cool. She has some really good things going for her. She has the explosive arrows, which consistently deal a high average DPS. They do a big, nice blast radius. She was just buffed. Both her AI, like aiming-wise, and the explode time on the explosive arrows now happens faster. So that's all really good. Not to mention she can increase your critical by a lot, both with her Eagle Eye skill and her leader perk. So she does a lot of things really good on the team. I mean, having the Eagle Eye upgraded all the way and getting like a couple critical pickups and having that critical chance percentage up at like 60%, even 50 or higher, somewhere around there. It's game changing. You almost need that to do the amount of damage you have to do later in the game. What holds her back? She doesn't really have any other overwhelming skills. I mean, her arrow rain is pretty good. It's not a bad AoE crowd control skill, but it just it doesn't stack up well against other ones. Her zombie decoy also pretty good, just not great. And her freezing arrows, good, not great, because the freezing effect in this game, unfortunately, is just not great right now. It's not bad, it's still useful. You can have a fun build with it, but it's not super powerful. So that lands her one tier above the medic and the B tier. So moving on, we have the engineer. Engineer is pretty good all around survivor, but what he really specializes in is skill cooldowns and skills. So it's fun having him on your team and having a lot of skills from other survivors just happening constantly, because you have that great skill cooldown reduction. Especially if you've picked up a few of those items that do the same thing throughout your run. It makes him really fun to play with, because there's just, helicopters flying over, bombings, turrets, everything that's going on is happening all the time. Not to mention he has some pretty good weapons. His laser, I think, is one of the better weapons in the game. It's not super powerful, but it's consistently good and sometimes really, really good. The same can be said about the blaster, but I don't think the blaster has the same potential that the laser has. But like I said, where the engineer really shines is his skills. He's really good at buffing the other survivors and their skills and having them happen more often. And in fact, his final skill that he gets, the energy shield, possibly the best skill in the game. I'm not really sure. I'm still kind of ranking those. That's probably going to be the next one I do. But it's really powerful. I was shocked when I finally unlocked it and started using it, because it hits so many zombies so often. It counts with critical damage, which is amazing. Not everything in the game does. So engineer, very good. I'm going to put him in the B tier as well with the Huntress. He's probably almost in the next tier. The only things that hold him back are none of his weapons are super overwhelming. His other skills, like his electric turret and his electrocution, are good, but they're not great. So he's just, aside from the skill cooldown, doesn't do anything super well. Alright, and then coming up next we have the SWAT character. We have him ranked right in the middle, which is perfect because I feel like he's the best all around, does everything pretty well, isn't really bad at anything. He's middle of the road, middle of the ranking. He has good weapons, whether you want to choose the sniper rifle or the assault rifle, although the assault rifle, in my opinion, is significantly better, just because of the fire rate. So when you have things that increase critical damage, like the Huntress or the Ghost or the pickups, it really benefits from that. I'd say the assault rifle is one of the best weapons in the game. Also, his skill, the automatic turret, also potentially maybe the best skill in the game. I know I just said that about the engineer, but they're kind of both right there at the top. The turret is really good, especially when paired with the engineer, because if you have a really low skill cooldown, you can have 3 of those turrets on the map at the same time, which is like having 3 additional survivors with 3 additional guns, 3 additional firepower. You get what I'm saying. You really notice how quickly it goes through those zombies. And that's kind of where he shines, is his skills. They're all pretty good, well, except for the grenade trail, which might be the worst skill in the game, so maybe I misspoke. But he has that turret, and he has the helicopter strike. Both are just super helpful. Again, when paired with the engineer, the helicopter's constantly overhead, the turrets are everywhere, constantly shooting. The downside of the turrets are that you kind of have to stay near them. If you set the turret down and run off, it's not nearly as useful. It's still going to fire off screen, but the zombies aren't trying to destroy it. They're following you. So, it has that little bit of a drawback to it. But again, he's definitely one of the better survivors in the game because he doesn't do anything bad. That assault rifle's good. That helicopter's good. The turret's good. He can solo pretty well. He's a great addition to any of the teams, I would say. Probably not a great leader because I don't care too much about reload speed, though some of the weapons in the game definitely do benefit from it. So he ends up being our first survivor in the 8 tier. So this is where it might start to get a little bit controversial, because for the next survivor, I'm going to go with Ghost. I think a lot of people are probably going to have him ranked number 1 on their list. I don't know. I'm going to put him at number 2, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'll accept that. The reason I have him at number 2 is because I feel like he does one little thing not great. Not amazing, not bad, but not great. And that's 2 of his skills, the kunai dance and the shuriken. Both decent for crowd control, but neither one's great. Neither one sets the world on fire. Not bad, mind you, just not great. However, his third skill, his protocol critical, one of the best skills in the game, because I think what it is, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, I forget, it gives you a 35% critical chance boost. So for 5 seconds, everything going out from all your survivors, all the ammunition, has a 35% higher chance of landing critical damage. And they recently added that the critical damage gets another 50% multiplier on top of that as well. So while that's active, my new, it's at its fully upgraded, I want to say it's 9 seconds that it's active, it destroys. It deals a lot of damage. It just shreds through bosses, because like I said, it counts for all your survivors and all their abilities and stuff like that. So it's really, really good. And I haven't even mentioned his 2 weapons. Now, his 2 weapons, his 1000 Cuts and his Wind Cutter, arguably the 2 best weapons in the game. That's not where I personally ranked them, but arguably the 2 best weapons in the game, because I think I had them at 2 and 3. One of them, the Wind Cutter, just shreds through bosses. Hits them multiple times, hits other zombies around them, stacks with all the critical damage we're talking about, anything else you've picked up. Amazing. 1000 Cuts, the opposite. Crowd control, just constant hits all around you, stacks with the critical damage really, really well. Great for crowd control. Stacks really well with his kunai dance and his shuriken that I talked about earlier for even more crowd control, making him arguably the best solo survivor, especially when using the 1000 Cuts. I think the 1000 Cuts, the protocol critical, all his crowd control, and his ability to still fight bosses makes him probably the best solo survivor, unless it's the next survivor that we're going to talk about. And that survivor is, if you haven't already guessed it, because there's only 6 of them, the tank. Now, the tank, like, I might be biased towards him because when I started playing the game right when it came out, I chose the tank. I grinded a lot with the tank to get a lot of the abilities and things I needed to get. But one of the reasons for that is he just seemed so much better than all the other alternatives. And I've played so much more with him because of that, especially because he comes with the game. You don't have to unlock the tank. So if you've just bought the game and you're wondering, who should I choose right off the bat? What's going to make the game the easiest? How am I going to get my skill points unlocked? I would go with the tank. He just does everything really, 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 really well. I think he has the best weapon in the game. I think he has possibly the best skill in the game. He probably doesn't have the best leader perk anymore, but I think he might end up having the best leader perk, because he used to get a buff to his overall health. Now he gets an armor buff, and I think that the developers seem like they're trying to make armor a thing. So even though armor isn't super good right now, I think they're going to buff armor and its utility in the game, making him even stronger. That's just an assumption on my part. Getting to his weapons, we have the minigun and the rocket launcher. The rocket launcher is good, not amazing. It has some really, really great situations. Overall, I think it's just a little above average, but it's super fun to use. His other gun, the minigun, in my opinion, the best weapon in the whole game. It has an enormous magazine. It fires super fast, and it benefits, like I've said about a lot of other guns, from that critical chance percentage and that critical damage. So unfortunately he can't boost his own critical chance, but if you pair him with somebody like the Huntress or Ghost, or you get a lot of those critical pickups, that minigun, it just shreds through the zombie bosses. And you might say that since it's a gun, it doesn't do well in crowd control, but it does, because it fires so fast and he turns and pivots so fast. Now, it's not gonna crowd control like some of the really good crowd control skills, but it still has crowd control potential to it. And the tank doesn't need any help with crowd control, because he's got 2 really, really good skills to do that. He's got the Sawblade drone that I think a lot of people underestimate, but especially early in the game when you first start playing, the tank with the Sawblade drone is really, really, really good. Especially if you can get some pickups that increase skill damage, because the Sawblade is always going, so the cooldown doesn't matter, but the increased damage will help, because like I said, it's always going, it's always doing a little bit of damage. It really helps the tank with the minigun and whatever gun he has complete that crowd control. But on top of that, he also has his bombing strike, which is the last skill that he unlocks. So it's not everybody's going to have it right off the bat, but that with a great skill cooldown and the damage we're talking about is a really, really, really good crowd control skill. It just bombs constantly raining from, well, not constantly, but when you have a good cooldown, it seems like they're constantly raining from the sky, and they do a lot of damage. They do a lot of damage. It seems like I see the bombing strike take out bosses all the time. So I don't know what the exact damage on each bomb is, but it's good. And the average DPS on the bombing strike sometimes is shocking how good it is. I almost feel like it might get nerfed at some point if the developers notice that. But if they do nerf it, they have to buff his minefield, because that's the only thing about the tank that sucks. His minefield skill, I mean, it's not bad. It doesn't hurt you, but it's probably one of the worst skills in the game. It just, for whatever reason, it just has a really low DPS all the time. It has a long cooldown. He places them in weird places. Like, if you're running around the outside of the map, you know, he automatically puts them down. So they might be like along the edge of the map, or even like outside the boundaries of the map. And they're not really doing anything there. So, I don't know. They could definitely use a buff. Like I said, the minigun is the thing that really shines through on the tank. I think it's what makes him number one among all the survivors. But don't forget about his saw blade drone and his bombing strike. Everything about him is good. The shotgun is also really good. Before you have the minigun and all that stuff unlocked, the shotgun will help you a lot in the early game. So he's really who I suggest to get your game started with. And then maybe when you have more skill points and you feel like you're better at the game, maybe Ghost is better. You know, maybe you're gonna do a lot more damage with Ghost, but I would start with the tank. So that's been my list today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, YouTube has a button for that. If you think I'm stupid and you want to tell me how stupid I am, please actually do tell me in the comments, because if you tell me how stupid I am, I might be less stupid in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.